Grant and Danny on the Fan, there was a lengthy investigation by the NFL into two organizations for tampering this offseason ahead of free agency. The Falcons in their Kirk Cousins courtship, and the Eagles as they went and got Saquon Barkley from the New York Giants. And what the league found was that the Eagles, I guess, didn't tamper. They've been cleared. Although I always think it's funny when you look into tampering, you don't find anything. Because I think if you look hard enough, you could definitely find something on just about any player that signs anywhere. Like tampering is so prevalent,
so ubiquitous,
and such an everyday thing in so many transactions in the NFL, by definition, in the offseason, that I think it's. I guess the comp would be like if you lift up enough cushions, you'll find some crumbs and some junk underneath. It's just part of it. You have a couch, lift up the cushions, it's not going to look that great.
Yeah, there's a nickel and some crumbs every time.
But they didn't find anything when it came to the Eagles. So I guess what they were looking for had to be pretty extreme, and Philadelphia didn't reach that extremity. But the Atlanta Falcons have been punished. Thursday, word came down this morning. They were docked a 5th-round pick in the 2025 draft and fined $250,000. I got to tell you, Danny, to go get myself a high-end veteran starting quarterback, I'd give up a 5th-round pick and $250K every single time.
There are very few players that I would sign in free agency where I wouldn't pay that. Like that when you get to like punter level or like long snapper level or special teams guy, I probably wouldn't want to sacrifice a 5th-round pick, but that's in the who cares tier. This is clearly not a priority to stop this. If the NFL cared about this, they would do something different. They want this to go away. They want people to not ask any questions about it. That's as nominal a fee and punishment as you could find for any what's the word I'm looking for? Violation.
I didn't realize. I thought this was just a Cousins thing. It was actually also wide receiver Darnell Mooney and tight end Charlie Werner. So it's 3 different players that the league, I guess, found out that they had improper contact with, which presumably means they put out feelers on with an agent, maybe directly to the player, talked to an executive too quickly, a member of the coaching staff, or something like that. But it was not only Cousins, but Mooney and Werner. So from what I'm looking at here, the league found that the Falcons didn't just bend the rules once, but 3 times. And then they docked them with a 5th-round pick. We had Mike Florio on the show for a different reason on Monday. We were talking about the NFL's lawsuit as it pertains to NFL Sunday Ticket.
Mm-hmm.
But this came up in that conversation, and he speculated that the Falcons were going to get hit with a 1st-round pick taken away. Now, I thought that was ridiculous all along because, again, everybody's doing this, and that would feel like being sent to jail for speeding 11 over or something. No one should lose a 1st-round pick for tampering in free agency. But there's a pretty sizable canyon from a 1st-round pick to a 5th-round pick. And I definitely thought it would be more than it was, especially when you find out that they did this with 3 different players. I personally just don't care because tampering is ubiquitous, as you've put it. But if you're going to do the investigation and if you're going to pretend like it matters, you probably got to do something more than a 5th-round pick.
Yeah, who was it? Miami that lost a 1st-rounder years ago?
Yes, but that was a different situation.
Obviously it was very different, but I don't know. It's one of those things where the rule is only as important as the enforcement. That's kind of the way all things work, right? Like rules of law, it's what keeps our society glued together, right? The rule of law matters. We've learned that jaywalking is not a big deal because the enforcement doesn't meet what the other violations are, right? Like you might get a small citation 1 out of every 100 times you jaywalk, but we've kind of learned through enforcement or lack thereof, that's not the same as, say, burglary or armed robbery, right? We know that it's a tiered system. We enforce certain things differently. So when you do a jaywalking level sort of punishment for something that you say is important to you, everyone now knows it's not. The next team is frankly foolish. If you want to go get a starting quarterback in the open market, you should do what the Falcons did. It probably more, right? I mean, it seems that simple to me.
I'm glad you brought up the Dolphins because they were docked 2 draft picks, a 1st-round pick in 2023 and a 3rd-round pick in 2024. And their owner, Stephen Ross, was suspended and given a $1.5 million fine. But one of the reasons that was so substantial was that they were having contact with Tom Brady while he was under contract for the Patriots for an entire football season. They found that their communications with him started during training camp of 2019, continued throughout the 2019 season and postseason. The Dolphins had impermissible communication with Brady and his agent during and after the 2021 season while he was under contract with the Bucks. So this went on for years, essentially, that they were trying to lure him. In January 2022, reading from CBS's report, the Dolphins had impermissible communication with Don Yee, the agent for Sean Payton, who was under contract with the Saints at the time. The Dolphins had called Yee to check on the possibility of hiring Payton as their head coach. So they had a quarterback, a head coach under contract with another team. Whereas what the Falcons are guilty of, it sounds like, is beating the clock by, I don't know if it was days, hours, whatever, but with free agent Kirk Cousins.
Yeah.
Very different. It's almost like sleeping with someone who's married, right? Or someone who's single. Like Kirk Cousins was not on a team when they talked to him when they weren't allowed to yet. You see what I'm saying?
I see exactly what you're saying.
Whereas Tom Brady was a New England Patriot, and the Dolphins in the division for years and years and years were trying to sweeten the pot and get him to come there when he became a free agent. Some of the differences, I would say.
No, for sure. And yeah, I mean, the free agency tamper. So the other kind of tampering is very much under contract with another team. You can't have that. I get that. That's how you escalate to that sort of nuclear option there. But the casual, you're 24 hours early, or you're 17 minutes before the actual open legal tampering period. Now, it's again, the league had to adjust because tampering was so prevalent. They just kind of were like, let's just make a legal tampering period, and they're going to have to extend that. And then it's going to, extend even further because this isn't stopping. This is the, again, minor moving violation. Think back to college sports for all those years, right? Okay, we can't give you money directly, but it'll be gently watched through like one or two entities. And somehow your parent or some other benefactor that's closely connected to you will end up with a house in Pasadena and a brand new job they don't have to show up to. It's going to end up happening. When these nominal punishments, you can't go to a bowl game for a year, 7 years later, colleges had no incentive to stop it. Now it seems like the NFL, this is sort of their new deal that they're going to have to figure out. If this is a priority, you got to make it so.
That same investigation, as I read more now about why the punishment was so severe for the Dolphins, that was also the not only the tampering, but the tanking investigation. When Brian Flores came out and said that he was told to lose games on purpose. I'm paraphrasing. It may not have been exactly to that extent, but essentially
it was like he was allegedly incentivized to not. Yeah.
And so the league looked into that, and both of those investigations were done, and they came back with these punishments. So it's also hard to say which of these was for what they found on investigation A versus investigation B. I just know this. The Falcons have been desperate for better quarterback play. They have felt like they're a quarterback away. I'm not even sure that I buy that. I think their personnel on offense is a little bit overrated, and they can't rush the quarterback. But in a bad division, I certainly think they'll be good enough if Kirk Cousins plays well to have a chance in the NFC South this year. But they wanted to go get a quality top half the league QB. They've been hunting for one for years. And if you told them at the time they signed Cousins, hey, to make sure that you get him, because he's considering going back to Minnesota, there are other options on the table for him here. You got to start to negotiate with him, talk with him, let him know you're going to work this out the way that he wants. And you might get slapped with a 5th round pick. I think they would do that sight unseen.
Yeah, every team would. I mean, again, if you told me now for Washington, hey, in order to get Bobby Wagner, you're going to lose a 5th round pick and $250K. Yes. Give me the next one. That is a tiny, tiny price to pay. Again, you'd have to go really down the roster for me where I wouldn't give that up.
Yeah, the money is irrelevant because it's not cap money.
Right.
It's just cash that you don't care about that cash.
I do not care about that cash a little, not even a little bit.
I mean, it's not your money.
I mean, I'd love it. If you could pay that fine right to the account of old Danny Rouillet, that'd be sweet.
I don't think a 5th round pick is nothing.
It's not nothing.
Teams are built, championships are won with depth from rounds like 4 through 6 pretty regularly. Really good special teams players. Semi-frequently, you get high-end starters in rounds 5 and 6, at non-premium positions. So it's not nothing, but while I'd stop short of saying, like, I'll do a 5th round pick for Bobby Wagner or whatever you just referenced, if we're talking quarterback every time, If we're talking, we highlighted which positions are most important last week. Wide receiver, edge rusher, like those types of spots, cornerback, and I'm getting a stud. Take my picks,
Yeah,
man.
take him. Go ahead, take him.
Just like a trade.
Mhm.
Why wouldn't you do that? What do you make of them finding nothing on the Eagles? I find that interesting because for them to look into the sweepstakes they had for Saquon Barkley, there was obviously some type of smoke. And as I said, with something like that, I don't know. I could be a little aggressive in my stance on how much this happens, but I would be shocked if the first conversation Philadelphia had with Saquon Barkley was when they were legally allowed
Well,
to.
I think the difference to me, and I could be totally off on this, but there were a few too many, "Oh, yeah, we totally did that," comments from whether it was Cousins or folks in and around Atlanta.
Yeah, there was a less. I would say, the receipts weren't there. The smoking
Yeah.
gun wasn't there.
And so this is here's what it looks like to me. When when the league issues a like a search committee or hires a team of lawyers to investigate something, when they sponsor it, whatever they would like found, I bet you is what they find.
Do you think they're checking phones and like subpoenaing texts and calls and logs and stuff? Do you think it's to that extent to see was this agent talking to this team?
Because I don't know what right they'd have. I don't know what agents can be like, sure, go through it. Here, take all my texts. They don't want that. I mean, what right do they have? I don't know. But I think the only time they would actually do a real investigation, and I mean real, not just cursory, being like, hey man, did you guys do it? No, okay, cool, thanks. I appreciate your time. Is in a Tom Brady Dolphins like case where
But
you've got impropriety with where teams are aggrieved at each other.
yeah,
It's like, dude, you're talking to my player. You can't do that. Then they'll get involved. But I think in general, they don't want to find out.
but if they're not looking at text and call logs, then I want to know where the evidence even comes from because they're basically just interviewing people and relying upon
Yeah.
what they're willing to tell them. It reminds me of when I was a senior in high school, we did a senior prank. And my assistant producer, Mr. Carter, came walking around to those of us that, were, he thought, I guess I should say, I don't know if enough years have passed, allegedly involved, right? And the school resource officer, Butch Norris, walked around with him. And his buddy, Callie, was one of my buddies my senior year who was involved with this. And so Butch was standing in the school resource officers right next to the assistant principal. And the principal's going, did you have anything to do with this? And Butch standing right next to him goes, say no. And I went, no. And he's like, you didn't have anything to do with this. And he's just like, the cop is shaking his head no. And I'm like, no, sir. And he's like, do you know anyone who did? And again, he's like, say you do not. And I'm like, I do not. And that was the big investigation.
Good investigation, by the way. Very thorough.
Very thorough. So that's what it feels like to me if they're coming back on.
Yeah, there's a difference between Cousins being like, "This is when they talk to me," and for the Eagles case, I believe it was James Franklin, the head coach at Penn State, for some reason was involved, making some comments, and it was probably like, "James, were you mistaken?" And I'm vigorously nodding my head, as you can see on the YouTube chat. James, if you could say that you were mistaken, that would clear this up. I was mistaken. We solved. We figured it out. There's no problem. No problem, guys. Let's all pack up.
Today was a significant day in show history. A show field trip
It's a big day.
to Ryan's apartment to eat the very famous Clary casserole.
Yeah.
How did it go? What kind of grades do we give Clary casserole? We will regale you next on Grant and Danny here on Top of the hour, right at 5 o'clock, you will hear from Dan Quinn after day 3 of minicamp for the Commanders today in Ashburn. The boys were out and about as well. Grant and Danny radio program show field trip to Arlington, where we enjoyed Clary casserole at Ryan's apartment. Danny, you've got the backstory on this, I believe. Really
Yes.
dates back to Friday.
So when you were out at your charity golf tournament with Ramon Bushrod.
In fairness, this has been going for months. He has been trying to get us to basically compliment him on this casserole dish that he claims that he makes.
Mhm.
We've never had it. How can we compliment him on it? We've told him to bring it in, and he was very skeptical about doing so.
Yeah, he was like, you can't have it at less than optimum quality, which is moments after it's done cooking on his stovetop in his apartment in Arlington. And all of a sudden, he breaks that stance for whatever reason. On Friday of last week, he's like, here, have some. We're going, whoa. A dramatic policy shift in the Clary paradigm. Like, he basically said, it can't happen unless it's at my place. You guys are welcome to come over anytime, except for these times and this time and that time, and no one ever can. But you got to do it then. We're also like, I don't know how it's going to happen. So anyway, he hands it out on Friday. Darius has some, likes it, gives it a thumbs up. I was not eating, was not hungry, was not really ready for any food, didn't want anything. And then he gets annoyed that I won't take any. And I'm like, this massive policy reversal. I don't share food. There's a lot of issues here. We're not going to do it. So let's come up with a time where I can come over. And then all of a sudden, it's like, well, what if everyone came over? Nationals play at 1 o'clock on Thursday, which is today. Boys have a little time before the old radio program. Let's make a trip over to his Arlington. I was going to call it a condo. It's an apartment. His Arlington apartment, fresh off the stovetop, the Clary casserole. I got some, and you got some. We did it.
We did. I enjoyed myself. I got a tour of the premises, went and swung by and saw the pool.
Yes.
Beautiful pool.
Good pool.
Big
awesome
fan.
pool.
Was anybody there?
Awesome pool. Yes, there were a lot of people there on a Thursday, just during the day.
Nice.
People don't
Probably
really
on the
work.
clock, if I had to guess.
Yeah.
Definitely on the clock.
A lot of
Definitely.
people working from home poolside.
Oh
Mhm.
yeah.
in
What's
their
that
bathing suits.
term for like vacationing while you're working from home? What was that we talked about a couple weeks
Lazy,
ago?
I think is what it's called.
There's that. Yeah,
Gaming the system, I think it's called.
that's a good bit.
Taking advantage.
Yeah, all good
Uh,
until you get caught.
There was a term, I don't remember it. It's like something big homecation. I don't know. Something that
A
people came up
workcation
with.
or something.
But so then I got a tour of the apartment.
Yep. You guys both got a tour of the apartment.
We did, and watched a little Nats baseball
Mm-hmm.
and ate Clary casserole. So anything you'd want to tell people about Clary casserole?
So yeah, I'll just kind of give them what it is first and foremost. And Grant, you did see all the seasonings that went in there. So Clary casserole basically is pretty simple. It's mixed vegetables, frozen mixed vegetables, I may add, and that kind of serves as like the base. It's served in a bowl, a big wide bowl, kind of like an oval shaped a little bit, but it's just a cool little idea that I've come up with.
I just posted you explaining all the seasonings
Uh-huh.
that go into Clary casserole on my Instagram story if people want to see. There's about 10 seasonings that go into it.
Yes, there's a lot of seasonings, and you may ask, like, how'd you pick this up? Well,
We call this Clary Cooks. This is a new feature on my Instagram,
Mhm.
Clary Cooks.
Clary cooks. And so basically what it is, it's honestly, I couldn't even rip up all the seasoning at this point. I mean, it's like there's a honey garlic seasoning in there. There's Nashville hot chicken. There's rotisserie chicken seasoning. There's vegetable seasoning. There's salt. There's pepper, onion powder, garlic powder, a few others as well that are just kind of random. And of course, topped with everything bagel seasoning from Trader Joe's, one of my favorites. And sauces of your choice. I put like sriracha in there. Mumbo sauce is always a staple as well. You get a sriracha mayo if I have that, chipotle aioli sauce. So many sauces. You guys saw it all in there. And so that's kind of just the premise of it. And of course, you cook the chicken, and it takes about 10, 15 minutes, I'd say, to whip it all up. And then all of a sudden, you guys get to enjoy it.
All of a sudden. My favorite part was multiple times Ryan told me that there was 2 minutes left or a couple minutes from now. And then 5-6 minutes later, he's still kind of like poking it and doing a stir fry thing. I like that a lot.
Uh-huh.
Another thing that I thought was fascinating is the sheer volume of seasonings, spices. I don't know if they're working in concert, but like Emerald Lagasse would be like, that's a lot of stuff. I mean, there's so many things
It's
going
a
on
ton.
in there. It's very busy.
Again, you could go check out the Instagram story at Grant H. Paulson to see Clary cook. There was a lot going on.
There was. I mean, I will say these are all seasonings that I just kind of saw at the grocery store.
Just
It
saw
was
'em.
like,
So yeah, how did you put them? Like, how did we get to a point where you use all 11 of them?
Well, actually, it was someone from this station, one of the salespeople here. They kind of got in my head and saying, like, you don't use seasoning at all. So I basically just went to the grocery store.
And you went to the opposite extreme.
And it was
He
like,
said,
well,
now I'll use 10 seasons.
yeah. And so now I'm like, all right, well, you can't say that anymore.
Yeah, how do you
I'll
like
just-
me now?
Exactly. So I just kind of mixed them all together and I tried it and it was really good.
So my only question, and now it's time for us to ask the question.
Mhm.
This is not a casserole. So that's more of a comment. Why is it called Clary casserole? A casserole is a baked dish
Yeah.
made in rectangular square fashion
Mhm.
with raised edges. And you know what a casserole
Yes,
is.
of
You
course.
know it when you see it. So it's called Clary casserole. I don't know. I kept waiting for you to put something in the oven. The
I think
name
I
is
think it's just alliteration.
Exactly.
That's
That's
just-
a
exactly
little
what it
bit
is.
misleading.
Exactly what it is. So it is a little misleading, I will say.
Okay.
But like it's
This
just
is Clary
Clary
stir
casserole.
fry.
It comes off the tongue real well.
Clary's,
so.
Clary casserole sounds better than Clary stir fry.
Exactly. So it just sounds good.
Okay. Danny, any thoughts? Any questions?
Again, the let's just go for it. Let's just have Bob Senley on an infield single, just send that a runner from second. I like the first time where you went, here's 10 different things. I'm going to put them all on there.
Oh, by the way, don't forget the sauces.
Oh, I
Yes.
know.
At the end, he pulls out, I think he has roughly 15 sauces
He goes,
on his counter.
here's the
Yeah.
mumbo sauce. Here's the hot sauce. Here's the chipotle. Like do
and
that.
you said, what all do you put on it? And he literally puts like 5 on there.
Yeah, mix
And
it in.
Parmesan cheese as well. There's Parmesan cheese that is mixed in there.
It's a lot of things you wouldn't think would go.
But
They go. It's kind of annoying to me that it's
they
good.
go.
It's good.
Do we want to give scores?
Yes.
Please.
How would you? We're 20/80 scouting scale guys. I think you're a 1 to 10 scale guy.
I mean, I think we can do it at 20/80 scale. We're all baseball fans here. We know how this works.
All right, so let's do both.
Mhm.
Let's do first the 1 to 10 scale on. I'll say it. It blew my expectations.
It was
out
way
of the
better
water.
than I thought.
Blew my expectations away. Darius, drum roll, please. He's making the face he makes when he doesn't know where the drum roll is going to be. So now I'll.
There it is. That's right.
We're grading Ryan's Clary casserole.
That's an 8. That's an 8.
8 out of 10.
I would eat it. I ate it today. I would eat it again. I'm not like thinking about eating it again right now, but it's like it stuck with me. It left enough of an impression where I went, damn, that's pretty good. That's an 8.
I am through the roof that I just got an 8.
All right. Drum roll, please. Put a little pressure on me now.
I know.
To not completely kill it. Now you're going to think I'm joning. And I'm not joning. That's a 9. That is a 9.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, it is.
I loved it. I'm not doing a bit. I mean, you can see I ate you saw my bowl.
Your lips are filled with smile right now.
I thought it was fantastic.
It's really good.
I saw Grant's face look
Yep.
over as he finished it, and he was like, that was actually really good. And I was like, are you serious?
Now, I expected it to be nubs.
Yeah.
So maybe some of it is my expectations.
Well, but
But
that's the beauty of it.
It was,
I-
a little bit of a kick.
Mhm.
It was a little spicy. I'm not a big spicy guy. The mumbo sauce crushed. I put a lot
Yep.
of mumbo sauce in there, obviously. It was, dare I say, tremendous.
I thought I was going to be whelmed, right? Like the amount of times that he said, like, I know everything about stadiums, and then Darius whoops his ass in
Yeah.
a stadium contest. You're like, I'm an American history guy. Then he's like,
Thomas Jefferson was the guy, I think, who did the 4 scores 7
he
years ago.
arm wrestled Aaron Burr at Gettysburg.
Right.
Like so the number of times he has had irrational confidence about something, and it's either been whatever or fun. It was really good. It blew my expectations away.
Very good.
Yep, very good.
Ryan, you crushed it.
Thank you. I mean, again, like you guys are actually, I've made it for someone else prior in the past and they'd really liked it, but I was kind of concerned because you guys do have a little bit more of a sophisticated palate, I would say, being a little older.
Mhm.
So, but sounds like you guys liked it.
If I ate that at a restaurant, it would not be weird. Like I would be like, oh, that was a good dinner.
See?
Seriously.
Yeah.
Wouldn't you say the
Exactly.
same thing?
Yeah. Yep. Which again, I'm like,
Like,
oh, that was
I was
nice.
at Mike's American Grill last night. I thought about a bunch of things, including the jambalaya.
What'd you get?
Had I have ordered, well, of course I got the. Well, you know what? Actually, not
See-
enough course. I went off the grid. I got ribs last night.
You got ribs?
I had ribs for lunch.
Ribs for lunch.
Ribs. I had ribs for lunch.
I had ribs.
Got mashed potatoes instead of fries.
Yeah.
But if I would have said,
Did you get the dessert? By
I'll
the way?
take the Clary's casserole, we did not do dessert.
Oh.
And they brought that out, and I ate it, I'd be like, that's really
Like
tasty.
if that's on a menu someplace and they call it Clary casserole, even though and there's a funny little quip
Yeah.
about it. It's like, we know it's not actually a casserole, but it sounds better than Clary stir fry. And then they serve that. I go, oh, that's pretty good.
If you're having a lady over and you're trying to impress her and you cook that, I think she's going to like it. I think she's going to be happy, and I think she's going to go, he can cook a little
How about
bit.
that?
I mean, it's worked in the past. Clary casserole is a slam.
It has?
Slam hit. It is.
Did you go into a different room in your apartment after that?
Yeah, for sure.
There are a couple rooms you can go in.
There are a couple.
Yeah.
Not Dylan's room.
No.
Not that one.
No.
Not the bathroom.
No.
Which one is it?
There's another room.
There's another one.
There's another room.
All right. Well, good job, Ryan.
Thank you guys. I
Good job,
appreciate
buddy.
it.
Indeed. Dan Quinn spoke to the media today. You'll hear that next. 6:30 on Grant and Danny. At 6 o'clock tonight, we'll give away a 4-pack of passes to the Giant Barbecue Battle in D.C. next weekend. Welcome back. Thanks for making the show part of your day. Dan Quinn met with the media out at minicamp today. Head coach of the Commanders started his session talking about his linebackers coach Ken Norton Jr.'s speech to the players before practice.
As you guys know, Ken was a part of 3 Super Bowl teams back to back to back. But what he talked about today wasn't about the Super Bowl teams. It was about the lead up to that and what these 40 days are like in between, from the, what you would call the end of the mini camp into what the start of that next is. And he talked about that love, that connection, the work. He talked about being some hungry wolves, and knowing that that's where you make the difference, that you will not let one another down. I thought it was such a powerful message by Ken. You can always count on him for that, but it was just his life experience. He saw some similarities of him coming up with this group bonding together, and we had him share that with the team today. So it was excellent. A lot of people would say this is as the end of the off-season program. In a lot of ways, I see it as just our beginning and what we can be about and what we have. I think over the last 2 weeks, I felt this momentum shift. A lot of install had been in, through the first part of the off-season program. And now that those installs are going down, you're seeing the skill and the execution going up. And it's been really exciting to see. So I'm thrilled with the guys. They've really put in the work. We started way back, I think it was April 2nd with the veterans. And then we added the rookies into that group. And they really wanted to find out, the veterans did, are they for real? And how can they help us? And they absolutely answered that challenge in a very big way. So it's a fun group to coach. And so we have family barbecue today. But be glad to open up to you guys some questions. But I wanted to share that about Ken today. I thought it was such a powerful statement about team and connection. And whether it's years ago or today, there's some things about football that's nice to know stays the same. So glad to open up to you guys.
Dan, obviously, health is such a big deal with these things. How do you kind of feel you guys are physically coming out of this?
Yeah, that's number one, top of the pile, to make sure you come out of this, as healthy and going into training camp to that space. Good news is a number of the guys, that were held out this spring are making good progress. Guys like Johnny Newton and FA and others, to make sure they're hitting each mark along the way. So we're hopeful, as we get closer to camp, we'll have a better feel for, who's able to really get started right off the bat. But I'm really thrilled with the health of the team today.
And with the notion of the installs in and the execution going up, like just for Jaden, how have you kind of seen him progress this week in light of
he's if you've been around the building or asked anybody in the building, one of the things that I love about him, he's got this demeanor about the execution, about the confidence. He's got a swagger to him. He really has a very firm handle on the things that we're doing, but he also has the humility of a young player. And so I thought, what a cool combination to have this presence as an older player, but yet the humility of the new and younger player, knowing that he has a lot to prove. And I thought, well, what a rare and really cool combination that is. And we talked earlier about the quarterback room, what that's like for, Marcus in there. And those guys, they've had some similar journeys. And being able to share that, I think, has been really powerful. I know they both enjoy each other's company a lot and spend a lot of time together. So I thought, what a good person for Jaden to be around in Marcus. Marcus has the competitive fire and the humility as well. So there's a kindred spirit, although the age is a little different. There's a lot of similarities with the two of them.
Dan, with Jaden, where do you see sometimes where he maybe is a little bit ahead and other times where it's like, okay, he's still a rookie?
I think it's the execution. And the reason I say that is there's not usually I need that call again. I need it again. Or you're asking, in the headset to go. So in the huddle, the clear communication, I listen to every call that he makes. And so the IDing of the protection. So I would say he's further along, than you probably should be, but that's probably a, attribute to him as well, to say he was not going to leave, a stone unturned in terms of the execution of it. And that's what we talked about over his next 40 days of the smallest of details again and again and again.
And it's where do you see the rookiness, I guess?
I see the rookiness and all the things that you have to go through for the first time for him and all of his teammates. It was from draft to first rookie camp to OTAs and then 11 on 11. So I can remember when we first did 11 on 11, he came up to me and said, DQ, it's back to real football, you know, because the first 5 or 6 practices, if you guys remember watching, was all 7 on 7. So maybe the excitement is where I see the rookiness, the urgency, the energy that goes along with that, like how damn excited he is to get going. So I remember like coming after that practice, he was so excited because everybody was there, linemen, the whole thing. And so I'd say maybe that's the rookiness in the very best of ways of just energy for it. Like it's been cool to see the energy of these guys. They found they can work really, really hard and have a really good time together doing it. And that's what I'd hope to see accomplished. And we're certainly seeing that.
Dan, how far back does your relationship with Ken go to, and why was it important to bring somebody in even for off season and talk to them? Yeah,
I love Ken Norton. I really do. And our relationship goes back to 2010. And so we got connected at the Seattle Seahawks. So 2009. And I'd been a defensive line coach. He was the linebacker coach. I left after that season and come back to Seattle 2 years later, and to have him, you know, right alongside of me as the defensive coordinator, it was really impactful for me. He has such a unique approach. And like, if you were a linebacker coming up, this is the type of man that you'd want to be around on a regular basis, because he connects the football, the person, the soul, everything that it goes into it. And in a very cool way, his way of paying it forward to the next group of guys. So pretty cool for a guy like Jordan McGee to feel this energy of what it could be. And he's soaking up every bit of it.
Dan, Jaden told us that he gets in the building at about 5:45. Nick made the joke that he gets here earlier than him. He doesn't know how. But he also said that Luke McCaffrey is the other person that's here at 5:45. Just in your years of football experience, what does that signal both to you as a coach, to your staff, and then to other players, like when they're seeing this and they know that that's what's happening from their youngest players?
Yeah, you just see it. And it may come in different ways. I can remember years ago in Seattle, leaving on a Friday afternoon after preparation was done. Might have been like a 5:30, and the team might have been done at, let's call it 1 o'clock. And I heard some music coming from a meeting room, and in there watching was Earl Thomas. He was by himself, but he wanted to go through it again and again and again. And so I remember moments like that for players who will find their own routine and their own process. Sometimes the early morning time is the best. There's no distractions. There's nothing else that other than just that time to go. So I think it's really important for every player to find that process, to say what works for me. So we were talking about like Jordan McGee earlier. We're not saying you have to use Bobby Wagner's, you know, process, but you have to recognize what his is and make that true for you. And I think Zach Ertz and Bobby have embodied that for a lot of the players here, to say, okay, I see what that consistency looks like off days, you know, on days, early mornings, late nights. So that's what it says to me. He's finding that routine that works for him. And fortunately, he took that step at LSU as well, you know, to come in early, find extra time, and knowing that has worked for him, it's happening again.
Over the course of your career, you've worked with Russell Wilson and obviously the Matt Ryans of the world, so you've had a chance to see their process as well too. How does it precipitate on the field? Like, what levels of trust, like how much the players are willing to go the extra yard for those players? Just where do you see all that stuff?
Yeah, I was super unfortunate from the last, 10 or 15 years, from Russell to Matt to Dak. And I would say the best of the best are not only worried about their own performance, but coaching others, you know, what they saw, how it is, the smallest of details. And I certainly saw Matt do that, you know, with the receivers, with the tight end. He had his own language that he did. It was probably a little more colorful than Russell's or Dak's. Well, maybe not Dak's, but certainly more than Russ's. But my point is, they are both authentic to like helping others. And sometimes as the quarterback, you got to be able to help a formation, get to a protection. And it's such a unique spot. And Jaden has that coolness about him that people want to be next to him, because he's going to deliver the right information to the people. You're welcome.
Early on in camp, Marcus Mariota was taking most of the reps with the ones. As we've gotten a little further in minicamp, it seems Jaden is taking over. In your mind, is Jaden the starter? And do you expect as we get to training camp that he'll get most of the work with the ones? Well,
in true competition, that's, you know, why we set it up as we did, to have Marcus have some and Jaden to have some. So no great declarations other than like being true to who we are. You know, as competitors, there's no doubt that Jaden's making unbelievable progress here, and we'll have a really fun camp. But he's earned that opportunity to go compete. We wouldn't have given him those spaces and those times and those reps if he hadn't. But it was really clear that he's put in the work and he was ready to do that. So it was by intention for sure that he was able to do that.
And coach, part of that competition, we're seeing you guys roll out a lot of different combinations of linemen.
Yep.
How deep into the calendar are you comfortable right now until you make that decision on who your starting five will be?
Yeah, I don't have a calendar date set, that I've circled. It has to be by this time. I don't want to, if it's, you see it, you do it. And, but certainly at the line of scrimmage on both sides, we all owe it to ourselves to take that process all the way through. And fortunately for us, we've, planned ahead as we're going into practices. We have some other scrimmages against other teams. So we'll have some opportunities that will be really beneficial for the big guys, and we'll take them all.
And then can you talk about quarterback Sam Hartman, kind of what has stood out from him to you so far?
Yes. And I thought Sam, we had just a good visit with this morning about the things that he's going to work on, heading into it. So some of our post-practice stuff has been devoted to the youngest players who may not have got a lot of reps early on. And so for a guy like Sam to know that these reps are coming, I'm going to be ready for those. And he's absolutely ready to deliver on that. So it's been an excellent addition. It was great to hear from a coaching standpoint how some of the veterans have mentored him, not just in the quarterback room, but he wasn't expecting that, and so had heard other stories where it's not as, easy for a rookie to connect. And so for guys just to say, come on, let me show you how to do that, knowing what they would have given almost anything to have somebody do that to them. I love the humility of some of those guys who are the older ones say, these are my younger brothers, not pledges. And we're here to make them better.
Coach B-Rob and Austin, they both said that there's definitely a competition there, but it's a healthy competition. How much of that is your MO that let's not make it about trying to take somebody down, but to push each other up? Yeah, and I think that's why you saw some reps also that you saw them both out there together. And, so it's pretty rare that you have guys with unique stuff and unique talents that are not cookie cutter, same as. And so to have that kind of balance, I think as an offensive play caller and as a head coach, like more things even open up to you because of that. But these are elite competitors. And, man, are we fortunate to have them both.
Jaden said yesterday, the 6 weeks, quote, off. Yeah, I'm not really going to be off. I'm in football mode. You'll take a little time off. How much can you stay away from the game, or will you?
Yeah, I think you have to some. For the players, it does work out a little bit different for the calendars. It's harder for the rookie player because their off season wasn't typical. So their first calendar as a rookie, it's hard. So we do have to find small breaks because the times that we're together, they are intense. And so clear that space and then go back to it. So knowing that in these 40 days or thereabouts, there are certain work-ons, as we're going to call them. How do you put that plan together to make sure when you come back, those things that you said you were going to do to close the gap, you stood in that gap and you filled it. And so each of them having a specific plan is important for that. It's important for the coaches too, to recharge the battery and make sure as we're coming to camp, we're really ready to give these players our best. And that's what it's all about.
Dan, we talked so much about the offense. On the defensive side of the ball, have any of these guys surprised you, really made an impression? Maybe they're able to do more than you were expecting?
I think just seeing this collective rise as the whole group, you've heard me talk about ball skills a lot, and they've really put, that type of work in to find that. And thinking like an example of that was Quinn yesterday to make a fantastic play. Those don't just happen. So you have to put the work in, to create takeaways, also the catching in those moments. So that alone, I've been impressed by from where I saw us at the early part of the offseason program to where we're at now. I feel some identity coming along with the group, and Joe's done a really fantastic job, him along with the assistants, of helping support that identity. We're going to have a pretty deep crew, and Adam and I are having some really tough decisions from rosters months from now based on the work that the guys are putting in.
You've always kind of used versatile players in different spots. Has anybody emerged where you look like, all right, that guy can be a linebacker, he can also be a pass rusher, maybe he can help us on tight end coverage, all those sorts of things?
I would say some of what I was hoping to see, I did. And maybe that's with Chin. I would say it's been good to see Martin, some down in the box, but some as a middle field safety. Luvu, although I knew that was a part of his game, I'd say it was probably even stronger than I thought. So those would be some, that jump out to me. And now on the offensive side, we've worked, some receivers who could move into the backfield and vice versa. So yeah, it's an ongoing process, but sometimes you just try it, take a look, and not. Same thing with the kick return.
What
have these last couple of months been like for you? You've been back in the head coach seat. Is this job is what you expected, and what fires you up? Because we watch you and you're engaged. You're with the drills. It seems like you're just so happy to be back in a sense.
Yeah, I would say one, I love having this chance with this group, and I think early on, when Josh and Adam decision to bring me here, what I was also looking for from them, and support and partnership, that went all the way through the coaching staff. So I got a chance to bond with the coaches prior to bonding with the players. And so it made me happy that one of our Bill Walsh fellows had said, man, you would have thought you guys would have been together for some years, not for some months. And so that doesn't happen, just on accident. So I would say, man, I love the coaching staff and getting to coach and be involved. And so that's probably been the first part. And then the second part over maybe the month, I would say I've 2 weeks, 3 weeks, a month, like I felt this tide start to roll with some momentum about the improvement. And I felt like that's why it might be the end of minicamp, man. Like I feel like our foundation is starting. And so like we're about to go for it in a very big way. And it's cool to see the shift take place.
So the players go away for 6 weeks, rest, recharge.
Man, you guys are getting the vacation longer. It's 6 weeks.
I wish 6 months, right?
Yeah.
What was your message to the guys as they break camp and kind of go to their respective destinations?
Yeah, I think first off, protecting the team, like they're away from this environment where we're together just as often as we could be. So there'll be some times on their own in different places. And so we've all, read or heard stories in an off season that, trouble can be found. And so I just wanted to remember, like, we have one big rule, protecting the team, and that applies to 24/7, whether you're here or elsewhere. So that was number one. And then doing your part to make sure that when you do come back, you can be counted on. And so that was probably the big message. And that's why I thought it was so important with Ken of his time to say, like, man, protect this time. Like, you're really putting it in, and other people want what you have. Like, keep going for it.
I want to go back to Quinn. The catch, you mentioned just his performance in this minicamp. How much did you know about him coming out of Illinois?
Quite a bit. Yeah, quite a bit, because we worked at him and some of his teammates from Illinois hard in the process. I thought he was just a really good tackler. And so at safety, there's probably even more communication that takes place from last year. He was featured a lot playing nickel. And so for a guy that can do both of those, that's a really big push. But man, I'm really excited about what he is, what he can be. And I just feel like he's one of those people. I'm feeling this momentum take place for him to ride this big wave in, because he's just gaining confidence in this new system. And that's really important to do that this time of year. So then the month of training camp, that he's really ready to apply it.
With the kickoff role, Larry is always saying how much he's been thinking about it, obsessed with it. I know there's still a lot of experimentation, but do you guys feel like you have a common grasp of it and what you want to do there?
I say much stronger than, months ago when it was first introduced. Landing zones, touchbacks, what types of kicks, what types of returns. So the preseason will be big too. We have a couple of practices. So we'll get not only in the preseason games, but some practices. And what we've done here over the last couple of days, we just split the team into two groups. You were kickoff one day, the next day you were kickoff return, and just tested different ways and different things. So it was also nice to have the officials here, because where do they stand? How do they officiate it? So two-part, us to get reps, but I also wanted to provide an opportunity for the officials who are here. This is their first take, and you don't want anything first to be in a game. All right, you guys have a great summer, and we'll see you when you get back. Yeah, you guys are a hell of a deal. I'm going to come back.
Dan Quinn out in Ashburn at minicamp today. Next, I want to get into what he said about naming Jaden Daniels the starter, or as it turned out, not naming him the starter, and why he's made that decision. We'll do that next on Grant and Danny. Grant and Danny, this is the Fan. Your chance for those tickets to the giant barbecue battle in DC. Coming up in a half hour, we're taking you up to 6:30. You'll have overtime and live local sports talk into the evening tonight on the Fan because the Nats played and lost this afternoon in Detroit, taking on the Tigers. You just heard Byron mentioning that in the update 7-2 final today. But you just heard from Dan Quinn. Lengthy press conference out in Ashburn. Covered a lot of ground. I will say this. I was thinking about this listening to him live today. He says way more than Rivera used to. He answers questions. Now, maybe it's just early. It's June. This was probably the part of the year, if you go back, where Rivera was more forthcoming as well. And we'll see in season if that changes. I remember covering Shanahan that this time of year, he was an open book for the most part. But when the season actually started, that book closed pretty tight.
Yeah, he doesn't have the Rivera-ism of the 10 seconds of preamble and intro where nothing is said. The biggest thing about it is more so than anything else. Again, nothing has been said yet. You haven't answered any kind of question. You're basically saying, like, either you're gathering your thoughts, whatever. I'm not criticizing. I'm saying that was his thing. Quinn doesn't have that. Exactly. It's like I hear your question. Oh, yeah. Like, and he has this enthusiasm for answering it. And again, that may change when they're, 1-5 or something.
I do find him to be, though, very willing to answer and actually as to be someone who's providing information.
Yeah.
Now, it's easy this time of year because it's all positive.
Right.
Nobody's playing football games. So you're just telling us which players you're impressed by and how hard this guy works and how early that dude shows up and what an amazing transition someone's making and how quickly they're learning your defense, whatever else. It's really easy right now. But I find his way of answering questions to be different than Rivera's. And I think it's refreshing. That's all. But here was one answer I wanted to drill down on. He was asked about Jaden Daniels getting first team reps this week at minicamp, and if he was willing to say that he is going to be the starter, or if it's too early to call off any kind of a competition for the QB job. And here's what Quinn said about that.
Well, in true competition, that's why we set it up as we did, to have Marcus have some and Jaden to have some. So no great declarations other than like being true to who we are. As competitors, there's no doubt that Jaden's making unbelievable progress here, and we'll have a really fun camp. But he's earned that opportunity to go compete. We wouldn't have given him those spaces and those times and those reps if he hadn't. But it was really clear that he's put in the work and he was ready to do that. So it was by intention for sure that he was able to do that.
Thoughts on the fact that it seems like he is going to continue to pretend like Daniels might not start in week 1?
This is just something I'm just not, I don't get. I don't get it. There's a method to it. There's a thought process there, which I appreciate.
Is he just doing the coach thing of he's
I think it's that. I think it's that. It's this, we have to play pretend. Maybe it's my age. Maybe it's my cynicism from being fortunate enough to sit in this chair. I don't know what it is exactly about this. The pretending, when somebody's doing that, when we all have to pretend, society-wide, when we have to pretend that it's not the obvious thing that we're seeing, we have to do some sort of weird song and dance. I don't have that time for it. Whatever it is fine. It's fine that he's getting all the starting reps. He should, by all accounts. You didn't go get, as you've eloquently said before, they didn't go get Jacoby Brissett. They didn't go get a guy that's had a lot of starting experience over the last couple of years. It's not like Carson Wentz is here, who was a starter in both of his last several stops. Not
or
like
Minshew or some bridge.
That was a bad example. But you know what I mean? They got a guy that is now firmly entrenched in a backup role, especially because he walked out on his last team when he lost the starting gig. That's not how you get to be a starter again. He's not a threat, and he never was. This is so obvious, and yet we have to do this pretend thing. Maybe I'm more bothered by it than I should be, but I just don't play pretend anymore.
I wonder when they're going to name him the starter. So it's obvious they're not willing to do that yet. And if they're not doing it now, then they're not going to do it at the start of training camp. But are they going to do it during camp and prior to preseason games, do you think? Like a week, 2 weeks into camp, they go, Jaden has checked every box. He is ahead of schedule. He is better than advertised. We're blown away by how he's picked up the offense. He is our starting quarterback. or are we going to have to suffer through an actual faked faux competition where is Mariota going to start one of the preseason games? Because to me, that would be ridiculous. Sorry, it just would.
Only if it's the third one and Daniels has done enough and he's the starter in week one and it's obvious.
You know, I don't mean that.
Yeah, I know what you mean.
I'm saying that if they play 2 legitimate preseason games, which is with the 3 preseason game schedule what teams do right now. They play the first one for a quarter or so. They play the second one for a quarter and change. And then now it seems like the in vogue thing around the league is that you sit for all your important guys for the third preseason game, and you just use some of the back of the roster types that you're making decisions on for the practice squad. Although I should point out, we don't really know how Quinn's going to handle it because the preseason structure has changed since he was last coaching in Atlanta and operating during the preseason. But that's typically how it goes. If they're going to do this competition bit, is Jaden Daniels really going to start one and Mariota's going to start one? Because if you miss out on a chance to get a quarter of action for Jaden Daniels against starters in one of the 2 preseason games where you're playing your players,
I'll make a lot of noise.
That's going to be not only a bad decision, but it's just the wrong way to do this. Unless you're really having a competition and Mariota could actually start in week 1, which I don't think is the case, and that's an even bigger annoyance at that point.
Yeah, I think that's a good summary. To me, there's so little upside. And I know all the old school folks listening right now are kind of going, but what about the cliche? What about everybody has to earn it and blah, blah, blah. The earning it it's a different time. The opportunities and repetitions that everybody has to work from are so limited in this offseason. They're not going to be back together for another month and a half.
Yeah.
This was it. You could do stuff on your own. It sounds like you might be at the facility throwing to Luke McCaffrey or throwing to some teammate or assistant trainer or something. But this is it. This is the time on the grass has just ended for this organization, for everybody, for another month and a half. And then you're ramping up to a football season. The opportunities are so limited, so precious. The earning it is showing up at 5:45. The earning it is the film study. The earning it is dominating in meeting rooms. The earning it is the handling of quality repetitions when you get them. But the moments together with your teammates are so precious now with this current CBA that I have no time for anybody other than the rookie who you drafted number 2 overall, who holds everybody's future in the palm of that hand. If he does well, Dan Quinn's a genius. Adam Peters is a genius. Lance Newmark's a genius. Everybody's key card gets to work for years if this works out.
Everybody gets promotions. Everybody gets raises. Everybody becomes GMs in other places. Yeah, everybody benefits. But the Bears are not playing this game. They came out before their mini camp. They came out right after the draft and said, yeah, of course, Caleb Williams is going to start. You guys know that. Why would we pretend like he's not going to?
I just don't get the pretending.
I just wish they would do the same. But they're not ready to yet. What do you guys think? I didn't expect Dan Quinn to name Jaden Daniels the starter during this mini camp because it doesn't seem like the way they're going. But I wish it was. We can open up the MGM National Harbor listener lines on that next. 800-636-1067. When do you think they'll name him the starter moving forward? Grant and Danny on the Fan.
communication. I listen to every call that he makes. And so the IDing of the protection. So I would say he's further along, than you probably should be, but that's probably a, attribute to him as well, to say like he was not going to leave, a stone unturned in terms of the execution of it. And that's what we talked about over his next 40 days of the smallest of details again and again and again.
Dan Quinn heaping a claim on Jaden Daniels. Not ready to name him the starter just yet. Bears have named Caleb Williams their starter. Clearly, Washington is going to go into camp at least suggesting that Daniels and Marcus Mariota are going to compete. We'd like to hear the team just come out and say he's the starter, but we're going to have to wait and do a Rivera, one of these, in air quotes, quarterback competitions that aren't really. What do you make of that? 800-636-1067. Tony's in Clinton on G&D. What's up, Tony?
It don't bother me at all, man. Like it's June. It's June, and the kid ain't been out there no time. Everybody really knows the circumstance, and if you're trying to have a competitive environment where every position is up for grabs, you got to go out and earn it in June. It's the kind of stuff you got to say, and this is a rookie. You're going to have that same conversation for guys who've been on the team for a couple, 3 years saying they compete for the spot. So you have to say it.
Remember, the Bears aren't saying it.
Yeah, what do you think of them? What do you think of them doing the opposite?
Let the Bears do the Bears. Like, I mean,
but then you don't have to. But that's kind of my point, is that there is this antiquated way of thinking, this old school mentality of like every competition, every spot is up for grabs, competition at every spot. When we all know
what will bother me. What will bother me is if he loses reps. Like if they try to split it up, it needs to be clear that the reps are going to him, and that I don't want to be wasting reps for the sake of a quote unquote competition. And if it looks like that's what's happening, that's what bothers me. But I believe that by the first preseason game, he'll be named the starter.
So you and I are on the same page then, it sounds like, honestly, Tony. The only thing I care about, really, what he says at the podium doesn't matter. Actions matter. I want the reps to go to Daniels. But to that point, when they were doing their OTA stuff and their a lot of their workouts leading up to this mini camp, Daniels was not working with the first team. Now, it was early enough in the offseason, it really didn't matter, to be frank. But every day at training camp, in my opinion, he should be getting first team reps.
Yeah, so that's my number one priority. What they say, I'm not like angry about this. I'm not saying this is bad.
No, it's not a big deal. But what is a big deal is he needs to get the first team reps.
Yeah, that's what I care
about. If they're splitting reps
Right.
for a competition, that's wrong, and they shouldn't do it.
Yeah, that's my feeling. So the rep part is the thing I care about. First, second, third, all the way down to like 1,000th. I just don't like pretending. I don't like weird pretend games that are for a point that I don't think needs to be made. If it is a true competition, different conversation. Like if the left tackle spot seems to maybe be a true competition right now between Coleman and Lucas. Let's compete, have at it. I'm all for that because you don't have Trent Williams there. So let's do that. This one is a different animal.
I also don't like the idea that we have to pretend like quarterback's the same as every other position, or like every player gets treated the exact same, which is just not the case. Ask Tom Brady. Sorry, it isn't. Does everyone get treated the same at your place of work? Probably not. Does everyone at this radio station have the same rules? Can everyone get away with the same things? Of course not. No chance. Welcome to the world.
Mm-hmm.
He got drafted number 2 overall after winning the Heisman Trophy. The other guy has been benched in multiple places. One's going to start. The other's going to be the backup. We don't have to pretend like that's not the case. Javel's in Culpeper on G&D. What's up, Javel?
Hey, guys. How you doing, man?
Good, buddy.
Chilling.
Hey, I really don't have a problem with it either. Like the first caller said, I think Dan Quinn is preaching competition regardless of the position. And I understand that what you just said, Grant, as quarterback is different, but he's holding everybody accountable regardless of your position. I have no issue with that. And, we've only seen Jaden Daniels, we haven't seen him, but maybe you guys have, other guys on the beat. It's only been, these OTAs.
Yeah, a handful of times, yeah.
We don't know if he's going to be ready. Just because he's a first round draft pick and he's a second overall pick, it doesn't mean he's ready. You can look at Marcus Mariota. Was he not the second overall pick as well?
He was.
He probably wasn't ready, and he got thrown into the fire.
So, Javale, real quick, wouldn't you want to use every rep possible to get him ready? If that's the case?
I guess you want to have the reps because I don't believe Mariota needs as many reps as he does because he's a seasoned veteran.
Mhm.
But I just don't want to throw him out there in the fire if he's not ready come week 1. So just to name him the starter, we went through this with Sam Howell last season. Oh, Sam Howell's a starter when he shouldn't have been the starter. So don't just name him the starter if he's not ready right now to be named the starter.
Appreciate you, buddy.
Thanks, bud.
Disagree on Sam Howell because of the options you had last year. You're trying to figure out if Sam Howell's good or not. That was the whole point of the season.
Mhm.
They came to the determination. They figured that out. That was what last year was for. Playing Jacoby Brissett, who was the other quarterback on the roster, even if you would have won a couple of more games, wouldn't have gotten you any closer. You're still blowing out a staff. You're still going and getting a quarterback because he's not a franchise quarterback.
You're still starting over.
That you're going to start year in or year out. So what they did with Sam Howell is actually, in my opinion, completely correct. That having been said, where I'll disagree with him and maybe a lot of people on this, and this is a great debate, I think, at the quarterback position we're having here on Grant and Danny here on 106.7 The Fan. I think that the debate of ready or not is fun, and we could drill down on this in the days ahead. But to me, like Sam Howell was a 5th-round pick in a project, and maybe you caught lightning in a bottle. This is a different thing. This is a Heisman Trophy winning SEC quarterback.
5 years in
who played
college.
the best competition that anybody who's come out at the top of the draft has played in the SEC for the 5 years, the number of games, the experience he's got. If he's not ready, that's a problem, number one. But number two, let's say he isn't ready. So what? So you adapt your offense to college proof it to run what LSU ran or close to it. And you that's 60, 70% of your offense. And you get by until he's up to speed on the stuff that's going to take a little more time. But there's no reason he can't excel. He's a dual threat. You can do 2012 stuff with Robert Griffin. Robert Griffin, quote unquote, wasn't ready as a passer. They were the number one offense in the league with the number one yards per play, and he won the Rookie of the Year award because they adapted the offense to what he does well. Jaden Daniels can do all that same stuff, I think, in some cases better. So that's what coaching is to me. If he's not ready, cool. He should do what he did last year when he won the Heisman Trophy a lot, and then work some of the other stuff in as you go. 800-636-1067. You want to hop in on G&D here on The Fan. We have possibly set a precedent here in D.C. for how sports teams are going to be named. I'll explain next. Plus, we've got those tickets to the giant barbecue battle in the district. You can win those right at the top of the hour. Taking you up to 6:30, Grant and Danny on the Fan, sponsored exclusively by the law firm of Condori and Murad. They can guide you and your family in the right direction. They'll help you draft a will, set up a trust, create a healthcare power of attorney. Schedule a free consultation with their estate planning attorneys at kmlawyers.com. Be sure to tell them that we sent you. You will get a discount. kmlawyers.com. As promised, right now, let's give away a 4-pack of tickets to the 32nd annual Giant Barbecue Battle. You got to be the 10th caller at 800-636-1067. The event is June 22nd and 23rd next weekend over on historic Pennsylvania Avenue. Family fun for everybody. They're going to have 100 free food and drink samples, giant Corks to Caps tasting tent, Monster Energy Extreme Sports, live music on the Pepsi Taste More Summer Stage. You can visit thefanddc.com/events for more information. Go check that out if you want the details. But congrats to whoever is going to win tickets right now.
That event is awesome. It is so much fun. It is such a great vibe. I don't remember being around for the music part over the course of the years, but all I remember is everyone's so friendly and they want you to eat delicious food. It's like the ultimate temptation, right? You're just walking around. They're like, hey, man, we just got this off the grill, or this is fried. It's awesome.
It's one of the only times I've ever filled up on samples. Like there's enough samples there. You eat enough walking around that you literally are full without spending a penny, which is pretty cool. I think DC might have been a groundbreaker in this regard. I give the Commanders credit, I guess, for being the tip of the spear. The NHL has announced that the new team in Utah, right, Arizona, went out to Utah, now taking over the National Hockey League with a brand new club. They will be the Utah Hockey Club, at least initially. Sounds like for maybe this coming season only, and then there's going to be a vote ongoing. We're going to find out what the future name of the team is. So they're okay having multiple team names and moving forward with Hockey Club for now, trying it on for size. Sound familiar? Washington football team, Utah Hockey Club.
This is what you do when you don't have an answer. This is what you do when you're unprepared. So I think it's kind of ridiculous that they're leaving it open that this may be the name. It may also not be. So what are fans supposed to do? How are they supposed to embrace it? I'm sure they'll have some sort of jersey exchange if they do change it in a year or 2 or 3 or whatever. But yeah, this is what happens. We saw it here in Washington when you weren't prepared for a change, when you didn't have any kind of contingency. Maybe you might have to do something at some point. They had no planning, no recourse. They just sort of went, okay, we don't have a name. We're the football club or the football team, whatever the hell it was, and moved on from there.
I think they're eventually going to settle on something cooler. I think Utah Hockey Club as a placeholder is fine. I'm okay with normalizing and mainstreaming that European way of naming teams in the States. I don't want my team to be named that, but I kind of think FC, football club, HC Hockey Club. I like it. I think it sounds cool. I go back to wanting a plural noun for me.
Mm-hmm.
I don't have to deal with it if it's the Utah Hockey Club. They're playing HC tonight. Cool, no problem. A lot of people think that the Commanders should be the football team again. I would prefer the football team to the Commanders moving forward unequivocally. If I had to choose between those two, then I would go WFT. In fact, regularly, I write it down now as WFT. I don't tweet it because I don't need to waste time explaining why I'm doing it. But like routinely, because Commanders doesn't shorten anything. So it's, what are you going to do? Comms? It doesn't really make sense. So I've just put WFT for Washington football team, WSH for Wash, something like that. But I don't have any problem with that moving forward. I think you're going to see it.
Yeah.
Because also names, like everyone's got an opinion and companies don't want to create any kind of turmoil, controversy. You don't want to name a team anything that in 50 years has to change. And that boundary is always moving. God knows what's going to be not okay in 50 years.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, think about just how different things are now. So I think you're going to see a lot of that.
I think you will too. And I despise it. Oh, do I hate it? It's an easy game to play on. Does Danny hate this? The answer is yes. FC United, Atlanta. No, you're not. It's an Atlanta soccer team. We're not these old school, professional football clubs in England or Barcelona or someplace where it's different. It's different. It's okay to be different. We've got our thing. Our thing is good. City, plural noun. City, plural noun. We've done it. We separated from everybody else, formed our own thing. We got a big sport that's really, really popular that nobody else plays anywhere else, and that's fine by us. We watch it by the millions. Football. Do the thing that we do in North America. City name or state name in rare occasions. Maybe it's even a region. Maybe it's a province in Canada. City name, plural noun. Just have some guts. Just put something out there. Sometimes it's the Kraken. Great. You're the Kraken now. In 20 years, no one will think twice about it. Just do it. I hate this. I hate it.
But people could be turning the tables on you and saying, well, wait a second. Okay, they did that with Commanders. And 20 years from now, no one will think twice about it. So just take it and wear it.
Oh, I'm going to. And they're going to leave it as the stupid name. The reason they're not, this is my whole theory. They're not changing it now because they're hoping that they win a couple of games and everyone's like, it's going on me now. It'll never go on me. It sucks. I want it changed immediately. It should be the first priority. Anybody over there in the business office, work on it now. Take this stack of papers that you got. Drop those. Pick up a new stack of papers that says the name sucks and work on that. Fix it. Focus group it. Invite me. I'll be first and foremost. Pay me my $100 and get me a Subway sandwich. I will tell you how much it sucks. And everybody that likes it doesn't care that it reminds so many of us of Dan Snyder, and it's like being smacked in the face every day by that little twerp. Change it immediately.
I also think that the people that like Commanders would have liked anything. Like, I don't know that anybody likes Commanders because it's cool or good or awesome or like, I really like the logo.
Yeah, it's my team. I support them.
The Block W, is that interesting to you? And I'm not saying that you're right either, that it's like the worst name in history of the world. But what I am suggesting is someone that really likes Commanders would have liked Red Tails, would have liked Sentinels, would have liked football teams.
Diseased sewer rats. Buy my jersey.
They would like literally anything. So you've got those people, and everybody else, I would say, is either lukewarm to despise. I'm kind of in the lukewarm category. Yours in the despise category. But don't worry about those people that love it. They'll love the next thing.
They'll love the next thing. Change it every year. They'll love it.
They'll buy the gear.
And
they'll
bless
be
them.
at the store that they're in. And yeah, we need them. I mean, those are the diehards that are probably still having season tickets, listening to our show, calling in, talking about the game on Sunday coming up. You know, that is a necessary part of this fan base for sure. NBA Finals last night, Game 3. The Mavericks went on a 20-2 run late with about 3 minutes to go, cut their deficit to 3 after they were way behind. They ran out of gas, and Luka Doncic fouled out. And Boston took over the rest of the way and ends up pulling away to win 106-99. A 7-point victory, Game 3 to the Celtics. So they're up 3-0 in a series that, to me, and it's easy to say this now at 3-0, but it really does feel like this just screams sweep to me.
That was their last gasp.
It felt like that was the game Dallas probably could have and should have won. I mean, Kyrie finally showed up. He was terrible in the first 2 games. He scored 35 points, shot 13 of 28 from the floor, 4 of 6 from distance, was outstanding. 45 minutes, had to step up when Luka went down, hit a couple of big shots after that, and it wasn't enough. But the story of the game, we can come back to the Celtics being on the precipice of a title here in a minute. The story of the game was Luka, and the fact that while he was good again in a lot of ways, 27 points, 6 rebounds, 6 assists, not very efficient, shot about 40%. Matter of fact, he was terrible, 1 of 7 from 3, shooting from distance. The story was that he was horrific defensively, which is a theme sometimes with him. And also, the amount of time spent complaining to the officials last night was so obvious.
It's constant.
That it kind of took over parts of the game, it felt like. And I don't know if part of it was because the telecast on ABC, Reddick and Doris Burke and Mike Breen were calling attention to it more than they normally do. Like, he would shoot, try to get a call by flopping and falling down on a missed 3, not get back in time so his guy hits a 3. And then in that same sequence, they go back down the floor. He shoots another 3 and flops again and doesn't get a call. And there's numbers the other way because he's yelling at an official.
Yeah, he cost him a challenge at the end of the game where he's screaming, you better bleep and challenge that at his own bench. This was bad. And a number of his fouls were out of frustration, like little kid tantrum fouls in the front court. Like, after a possession was over, He, down 92 feet from his own basket that he's defending, fouled somebody, knocked him over to the ground, and then gave the official kind of a pipe down wave after he claimed he probably got fouled on the offensive end. He's great, but stop. You got to stop.
He might be right now, this moment, the second best player in the world. Now, this changes and kind of ebbs and flows month to month throughout a season in the playoffs. But I'm still going to say, even though he had a tough year shooting the basketball and a lot of the metrics around the perimeter as a shooter went down, that Nikola Jokic, who's won the last couple MVP awards, is the best player on the planet. But Luka, this postseason, making plays, scoring the basketball, in some people's minds, had the best playoffs, like supplanted him.
He was.
And
He's
is
having the
right
best,
there
yeah.
in that conversation where if there's 3 podium spots, gold, silver, and bronze, right now on this planet, he gets one of them. But it was such a turnoff, and just, for lack of a better word, it was so off-putting last night, watching him complain. I think this is an NBA problem. NBA fans don't like hearing this, and they'll be annoyed. But this is something that bothers me every time I watch basketball. LeBron's the king of this. I never really hear people yelling at LeBron as much as they yelled at Luka last night. I think what Luka did last night is LeBron most nights, to be honest. Might have been turned up a little bit, but the flopping is incessant. It's not as bad as international soccer, but on a scale of international soccer to normal American sports like hockey or something like that, it's closer to international soccer. I mean, the flopping in basketball's gotten out of control. The lobbying of officials from stars is exasperating and constant and ubiquitous and just ceasingly, never ending. I think it's not a Luka story as much as it's a bigger picture thing the NBA has to find a way to fix. But on the biggest stage with the biggest star last night, it was a big problem.
I will say, I'm with you on flopping, and I've always been with you on LeBron. It's one of the reasons I don't root for him.
The amount of funny clips of him, Danny, online where like he gets hit in the head driving to the lane, and he does the bit like someone just hit him with a bat, and he's like can seeing stars and wobbling. He might fall over, but he might not.
Yeah,
He's
I mean, it's constant.
A leaning tower. Like, get out of here, guys.
It's way too much. But for Doncic, the whining that takes him out of plays. LeBron, at least when he flops, does whatever. It's not as if he's missing a defensive possession for chirping an official all that often. Doncic is doing it in the NBA Finals. Do you know what I mean?
That's
like
different.
And this is one of my gripes with Beal at times too, where every time he misses a shot, it's like it couldn't have been my fault. I had to have contact.
That might have been the pendulum swinger. I had a lot of issues and annoyances watching Bradley Beal turn the ball over at the end of games and the constant money and just the everyone pretending was what annoyed me. Like Bradley Beal's one of the 10 best players on the planet when he's 39th or whatever he was. But like it was so annoying to me for so many years that we all had to just be like, yeah, we got one. No, we don't.
You got a nice player. He's a good player.
We have a guy who's pretty good at basketball, if that's what you mean. We pay him like one. He ain't one. I don't know what your one is, but it's not my one if he's one. But anyway, like it was every time he went to the he never once shot around bodies, contested shots, and he wasn't fouled.
Yeah,
and watching that is maddening.
After a play, you want to approach a referee and say, hey, like, watch this. Like, you're not seeing this, but with his, for the sake of argument, he's challenging me with his left hand, but watch where his right hand is. He's actually giving me a push off when I go up, and it's you guys aren't seeing it. Give it a look. You want to do that. That's part of the game. That's normal. I'm the most aggrieved party in the world. Throw my hands up, scream at a guy, take yourself out of the play. Every time is exhausting. I mean, they've begged him, talking about the Mavericks, to stop doing this crap. You've got to be able to pick your spots. If every time you do it, then it loses all luster and meaning. Like if you only complain when you really got hit, and it's easier for them to go back and look and go, you know what? He did get hit right there.
Right.
You get more benefit of the doubt. It's just too damn much.
Yeah, if too much is the point. It doesn't mean as much if you're always doing it. Radio-wise, if you're always screaming, if you always are hot taking, then when you have your occasional big moment, doesn't mean as much, right? I was surprised a little bit by the coverage last night and how quickly people were going in on Luka, but having watched the game, I totally got it. Because I thought the same thing. I'm like, hey, bro, your team's back that way. You care about that, or you're just going to keep talking to the official? Jordan did it best, I think. Everything. But specifically,
I was going to say, which part?
The talking to officials.
Yeah.
Where it's time and place. Ron Harper's at the free throw line.
Hands on his hips, chewing that gum.
You saddle up next to Dick Pavetta, or whoever the official was at the time, and you got your hands on your hips like a rec soccer coach. He would do the bit. You'll see it on the YouTube chat if you're watching. Hopefully, it doesn't take me away from my microphone. But he'll pull the jersey, over his mouth, and then you can't tell what he's doing, but he's just talking. And he had this really calmed, very different than in the moment, throwing your hands up and screaming, and everyone in the arena sees it. I comp it to when a DB gets beaten football or a touchdown is given up. And you got to do the very over the top, like waving at a teammate and pointing like you were supposed to be there. That way we know it wasn't you on the defensive breakdown. To me, that's what Luka's kind of doing. Instead of Jordan, 3 plays later when no one's paying attention, when someone's at the free throw line going up and being like, hey, man, they got me, or this guy's grabbing me every time I go through. There's a way to do that in every sport. After halftime, walking back out to the field, a veteran offensive lineman's going to find an official and say, hey, you got to look out for the defensive holding on these, duos who are running up, in the interior or whatever. They're grabbing me and pulling me, whatever it is. There's a way to do it. And Luka's just not doing it right. But he was catching some heat last night. He became the villain. This was Brian Windhorst, old Windy, very angry last night going after Luka Doncic.
Yeah, I thought it was perfect that Luka fell onto the ground there in an unacceptable position to put himself in with 4 minutes left with 5 fouls, and then immediately looks at the bench and says, you better bleeping challenge it, as if it's the bench's fault that he just made a terrible play. I'm standing here in the Mavericks tunnel. Over there is the Celtics tunnel. That's where the winners are. If Luka's ever going to be a winner coming out of this tunnel here, he is going to have to use what's happened in this finals as a learning experience. His defensive performance is unacceptable. He is a hole on the court. The Celtics are attacking him. They are ahead in this series because they have attacked him defensively. And you've got a situation here where Luka is complaining about the officiating. They have begged him. They have talked with him. They have pleaded with him. He is costing his team because of how he treats the officials. He's a brilliant player. He does so many things well. They are here because of how he did. His performance in this game is unacceptable, and the reason why the Mavericks are not going to win. He's got to get over this. And the fact that he came out after the game and blamed the officials showed me he's nowhere close yet. So maybe over the summer, somebody will get to him, because nobody with the Mavericks or anybody else in his life has. And that's where the Mavericks are at this point. They're never going to get to this tunnel with the trophy if he doesn't improve those aspects of his game.
Is there any kind of backstory with Windhorst and Luka hating each other?
That was a little too personal for me.
I agree.
Didn't it feel that way?
Like, I saw that live last night. It was on Van Pelt Sports Center. And I literally was watching, and Windhorst is not really, like, that's a Stephen A. Smith ether.
Yeah.
That's like Stephen A. Smith going at Durant or Kyrie, and he's like, and I want to tell you something, and he very personally names your aunt or something. Like, that was so weird to me that I thought, Windhorst and Luka have beef? Is this like a Drake and Kendrick Lamar thing where they're going back and forth, and this is his rebuttal?
Yeah, like the criticism, by the way, is very valid. Like right now, Boston's exploiting Luka Doncic.
But to me, the criticism is valid at like a 6 out of 10.
Exactly.
He went 9 out of 10.
Well, and that's kind of my point.
He's like, no one else in his life has? What on earth?
Yeah, like here's my analysis. Boston's got one more weapon than every other team they've played, and whoever Luka has is who they're going to. So there was a 5 straight possessions. Boston ran the exact same set. Dallas tried 5 different ways, and guess who scored 5 straight times? The guy Luka was covering. Seriously, they switched some, didn't switch others. They're whooping his butt on that side of the court, and he doesn't like it. He got frustrated and ticked off and yelled at the officials and took himself out of the game. I think that's a valid point. That's my opinion. That's my analysis. Very different than the way Windhorst was delivering that. It's hard to explain unless you heard it, what you did just now.
I think people heard it.
It's incredibly personal somehow.
Here's what I know. The guy's 25 years old. He's averaging 30 points, shooting almost 50%, and 9 rebounds and 6 assists a game in the NBA Finals.
He's great.
In a Finals he shouldn't be in, probably.
Yeah.
But he carried his team past a better team, got them to the NBA Finals. He's outperforming what LeBron and so many other of the greatest to ever do it have done in their first NBA Finals. Like, this should actually, this postseason, should be a plus in his column, not a minus. It should be a coronation of what an unbelievable player is and where he is on the Mount Rushmore right now in the NBA. And I get that last night was a really, really bad look. There was too much complaining, but say that. You don't have to. We just did a few minutes ago.
Yeah.
Hey, man, you're complaining too much. It's bad optics. Get back down the floor and play defense. By the way, it's not a crime in today's NBA when you score like he does, when you create like he does, I think he's the best creator, playmaker in the association right now.
He's brilliant.
You're not going to be that good defensively. You're pretty much generally almost never going to be great in both. Now, it's different to be a liability, which he's largely been in these series, and Boston has his number, obviously, as you said. But
I also think he's banged up, too, by the way, which really hurts you on the defensive end.
He's been playing hurt. I mean, he's got a bad leg. So, yes, I watched that game. I was annoyed by his antics. I thought it was ridiculous. But no one has ever done that to LeBron after a game. Where is that, by the way? LeBron is acting like he got shot in the ribs every time anybody slaps him. I mean, he's like, it's like, what happened? Oh, he took a charge. You know, like blood coming from his mouth. He's like a wrestler cutting a ketchup packet on his lip, on his forehead. He's got fake blood coming down. And the guy's ridiculous with his flops. No one ever fans talk about it. Where's Wendy on that? Wendy's too busy covering St. Vincent, St. Mary.
Yeah, he's getting his bread buttered is where he is.
I mean, seriously. Luka does this on a grand stage one night. And you're telling him, you know, no one in his family sits him down and gives him the talk like he needs to be told. This is where you need to get in the gym or whatever else he's talking about. That was a lot for me.
It was a lot. It was a lot.
Man, oh man.
Yeah. And again, it's like they're in the finals, bro. Like I understand in general, if this was another first round washout or like they underachieved for the millionth time, I mean, last year down the stretch, they didn't even make the postseason, if memory serves. Like they were collapsing. You want to criticize somebody for being uber talented and not getting anywhere? Okay. They're a 5 seed that just beat the defending champs, a buzzsaw Minnesota team that you know, kicking everybody's butt. Not the defending champs, Minnesota beat them. You know what I mean? They got past everybody, and they're in the finals against a dramatically superior team with 6 of the 8 best players in the series play for Boston. It's Luka and Kyrie in some order, and then the next 6 or 7 guys in the top 10 in this series belong to Boston. They're going to win. They're better. I was wrong, by the way. I thought this would be more competitive, but I don't know, dude. It just doesn't seem like the time to be calling guys punks, basically.
You know what else I was watching last night? The Hershey Bears won Game 7 of the Eastern Conference Final, the Caps AHL affiliate.
Oh, hello there.
Little high-end minor league hockey. They're trying to win a second straight Calder Cup. So odd. They played an overtime game. It's called Eagle Center. Or is it? I think that's right. In Hershey. They're barring 10,000 people.
Mm-hmm.
Giant Center or Eagle Center? Regardless.
The Giant Eagle.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
So they were playing, go to overtime. They gave up a goal with like 3 minutes left. And I'm sitting there watching. No horse in the fight at all. No horse in this race. And my stomach is tight.
Yeah.
Game 7 overtime playoff hockey for the AHL. And every time they have
the puck gets dumped in, you're freaking
end,
out. Yeah.
No, I'm feeling good. Then they get there on the defensive end.
Like,
shot on net on Hunter
oh
Shepard.
My God.
And I'm like, please, no. I'm like, how am I this into this right now? I was all in. It was fun.
And they won.
They are on to the Calder Cup final for the second straight year, which should be really, really good. Did you see Martin Truex is retiring from NASCAR at the end of the 2024
season? I did not see that. Is he young?
No, he's very old.
Oh, he's old?
I mean, he's just been around for a long time.
Well, like 40s old?
Yes.
Okay.
Who's going to take his ride?
One of the other drivers.
No, but I want a suggestion, Danny, as to give me another driver that you think could take his ride.
I'm looking at Randy Jarrett or Dale McMichelson Jr.
They don't exist.
No, they do in my mind.
Martin Truex Jr. at 43 is retiring. Tomorrow.
He's not that old. It's a good age.
Homework, Danny.
Yeah.
I want to know who you think's going to take his ride. I'll ask you tomorrow.
Okay.
Do a little digging.
You'll get an even better answer, I'm sure.
For Darius and Ryan, who made a great meal today.
Yeah. Good job, Ryan.
Clary casserole. Aggregate score 8.5 out of 10.
8.5 out of 10.
Grant and Danny saying so long. We'll be back to do this thing for real at 2:00 tomorrow. Linnell's got overtime deep into the evening on the Fan.
Thank you for coming.